Fordlandia, Henry Ford's jungle empire that time forgot. Hidden in the dense green veins of the Amazon lies the rusted skeleton of a forgotten dream, a ghost town carved out of jungle, meant to be a slice of small-town America. This is the story of Fordlandia, Henry Ford's failed utopia. The year is 1925. Henry Ford is at the peak of his power. His Model T has put the world on wheels, and Fordism, the idea of efficient mass production with decent wages, is being exported across the globe. But there's a problem. A car needs rubber, lots of it. Tires, hoses, belts, all made from natural rubber. And Ford doesn't control the source. Instead, the British and Dutch dominate rubber production, harvesting latex from sprawling plantations in Southeast Asia. Prices are volatile. Supply is vulnerable to international politics. Ford wants independence and control. So where do you grow rubber? The answer seemed obvious to Ford and his advisors. Take it back to its birthplace, the Amazon rainforest. In 1928, Ford struck a deal with the Brazilian government. He purchased 2.5 million acres along the Tapajós River, an area roughly the size of Connecticut. The land was remote, underdeveloped, and steamy with heat and insects. But to Ford, it was a blank canvas. He would plant rubber trees, harvest latex, and build a town, not just for production, but to uplift and civilize. Thus was born Fordlandia, an American utopia in the heart of the jungle. Ford didn't go himself. He sent engineers, managers, and idealists. They brought American equipment, American ideas, and American arrogance. At first, the dream looked promising. In the middle of the rainforest, bulldozers carved roads, docks, and houses out of the earth. There were American-style homes with screened windows and tin roofs, complete with manicured lawns. There were schools and libraries, a hospital, a power plant, even a golf course. Workers were given jobs and wages. Fordlandia was advertised in the US as a model city, combining industrial efficiency with moral living. But Ford wasn't just exporting industry, he was exporting culture. He banned alcohol, tobacco, football. Even women were barred from the men's quarters at night. Meals were served in large, regimented cafeterias. Oatmeal, brown rice, canned peaches. Very American. For the Brazilian laborers, used to eating beans, rice, and meat at home, it felt like an alien ritual. The trouble began slowly, then exploded. The American managers enforced work hours unfamiliar to locals. The tropical heat made rigid 9-to-5 schedules unbearable. Workers grew resentful. Then came the food riots. In 1930, a dispute over cafeteria rules sparked a full-blown rebellion. Workers armed with machetes and tools stormed buildings, looted facilities, and drove the foreign managers into the jungle. It took the Brazilian army to restore order. The Americans called it a misunderstanding, but the reality was clearer. Ford had tried to impose his Midwest morality on a place with its own rhythm, its own traditions, and its own will. Even if the social experiment had worked, Fordlandia still faced a far greater enemy: nature. Rubber trees in the Amazon don't grow in neat rows. They scatter themselves across the forest. That's nature's defense against blight and pests. But Ford's planners, trained in Midwestern agriculture, planted the trees like corn, row after row, packed tightly. It was a paradise for fungi, insects, and parasites. Trees withered, leaves blackened. Whole acres were lost to disease. Agronomists sprayed pesticides, tried grafting techniques, experimented with soil. Nothing worked. Millions of dollars were poured into the earth, and no rubber came out. By 1934, Ford quietly admitted Fordlandia was a disaster, but he didn't give up. He started over, this time 100 kilometers downriver, at a new site, Belterra. The location had better soil, more sunlight, and after years of hard lessons, The American team was more realistic. Rubber did grow at Belterra, but by then, the world had changed. In the 1940s, as World War II ignited, a new kind of rubber emerged, one not found in trees but made in factories. Synthetic rubber produced from petroleum was faster, cheaper, and immune to blight. By the time Ford's grandson, Henry Ford II, took over the company in 1945, Fordlandia and Belterra were obsolete. He sold both towns, land, equipment, and all, back to the Brazilian government. Ford had invested over $20 million in today's money. All that remained was a dream gone soft. Today, Fordlandia still exists, not as a functioning city, but as a haunting relic. Cracked concrete streets lead to decaying homes. Rusted water towers rise above the canopy like forgotten tombstones. A few hundred people still live there, mostly farmers and families who stayed after Ford pulled out. The hospital building is now a community centre. Children play under the shadow of grain silos that never fed a factory. Fordlandia has become a symbol, not just of failure, but of hubris. Ford believed he could take industrial logic and impose it on nature, on people, on the very soil of the Amazon. But the jungle doesn't follow blueprints, and culture doesn't bend to one man's will. Fordlandia is more than a ghost town. It's a monument to the limits of ambition, where idealism collided with reality, and where the jungle had the final word. In the end, Henry Ford didn't just try to grow rubber in the rainforest. He tried to plant a piece of America there, and the jungle, patient and wild, simply grew back over it.